Hey everyone, welcome back to another Beast of the Mesozoic review. Today we're taking a look at the 118 Dromaeosaurus albertensis. I'm really glad David decided to redo some of the 1/6 scale Raptors into 1/18 scale. The Raptor series has always, kind of felt like a separate entity ever since the Ceratopsian series comes out, and we know going forward a majority of the figures are going to be 1/18 scale, so it was the right move to scale down a few of these figures to 1/18 scale because they interact great with the current Ceratopsians and soon to be the Tyrannosaurs. Now this little figure retails for $24.99, but as of right now, at the time of this review, I don't know how long it's going to last for, they're still up for pre-order on Creative Beast sites for $21.99. There's going to be a second shipment of these figures to fulfill the rest of the pre-orders, so once that shipment comes in, they're going to go back up to retail price. So if you want to save a few bucks, definitely head on over to Creative Beast and secure your pre-order. The link is down below in the description. So let's go over the package really quick before we crack this figure open. I'm going to readjust my camera a little bit so we can get a better look at that beautiful artwork. This is the same artwork that appears on the packaging of the 1/6 scale version of this figure. Beautifully done. I always love the artwork on these Beast of Mesozoic figures. And down here is the blister bubble that has the figure. In here you got the couple extra legs, the base, and the plastic holders, which I already removed because, of course, I already took this figure out of the package. That is because this figure has very friendly, collector-friendly packaging. All you need to just slide this card out, and the figure's right here in this bubble packing. You can just pop it out, put it back in. Is, like I said, it's very collector-friendly. You're not destroying the package at all to remove them out. But let's take a closer look at this card sleeve. You got some facts about Dromaeosaurus, and then down here are the other 1/18 scale figures released. There's the previously reviewed Velociraptor and Protoceratops. We're on the Dromaeosaur now, and I just have these three left, so those should be up later this week. So enough about the packaging. Let's throw this thing up on the turntable and take a closer look. And let's start with this 360-degree view of the Dromaeosaur. This is a very tiny figure, so just if my camera keeps going in and out of focus while it's on the turntable, just bear with me. It's so small, it just really messes with the focus feature on my camera. So Dromaeosaurus is one of my favorite Dromaeosaurs, my first being Deinonychus. This one's number 2, and Utah Raptor is number 3. I always say I'm a huge fan of the Beast of Mesozoic series, but surprisingly, I have very few of the 1/6 scale Raptors. I think I only have 4 of them, but the 1/6 scale Dromaeosaur is part of that collection. It's one of the first ones I pre-ordered when the Kickstarter came out all those years ago. It doesn't really feel like that long ago because we're just so far into this line. There's so much awesome stuff coming out. It's been like an absolute pleasure watching this line evolve. But yeah, this 1/18 scale Dromaeosaur is a really cool figure. Now they're very light. The little included display stand gives you a lot of display options. This one's just pegged in with that little clasp to keep it in that running pose. They're much easier to have a dynamic poses and running poses compared to their 1/6 scale counterparts because they're a lot lighter. They're much easier to work with. The one thing you just gotta be careful for is the joints. These joints are very tiny on these figures. You just want to be very gentle with them because I can see these figures easily breaking if it's just a little bit rough with them. And for some quick measurements, this figure is 4 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the beak, or just about 10 centimeters, and just about 1 1/4 inches tall, or 2.5 centimeters. So Dromaeosaurus in real life was about 6.5 feet long, or 2 meters. So I put this figure nicely in that 1/19 scale range. And before we take a closer look at the figure, let's take a look at all the little accessories you get inside the packaging. Starting with this base, you can see the foot is clasped into the base right here. Now this part is removable. It holds the toe into place nicely. So I'm just going to pop the figure out and just pop this little clasp off. You can see that little peg hole right here, and you do get this little acrylic rod. You can just plug it in. Now be very careful not to push on this rod because you can snap that peg off. I already did it with the base that comes with my Velociraptor. So my word of advice is to assemble the peg, the rod, without it being pegged into the base. Put the Raptor on this first and then attach it because you don't want to be applying pressure while you're pushing the Raptor on because you will snap that peg out. Thankfully, I got all these extra bases that came with the Protoceratops, and I really don't need the base for them because they're quadrupedal figures, so I have an extra one now for my Raptor figures. And popping this back off, these are the sitting legs that come with this figure. You can see the Raptor does the sits very, very nicely. And let's just pop the legs off, one of the legs off really quick. You do get this extended running leg, so you can get different poses out of here. So you do get 2 sets of the sitting legs and 2 sets of the running leg. And now let's take a close look at some of the details on this very, very tiny figure. Starting with the head, this is basically just a miniaturized version of the 1/6 scale, and it looks really, really good. The eye is painted a bright red with a black pupil, gives it a very menacing look. You do have some light dry brushing of white for the face and a little bit of brown for the snout. The feathers on top of the head are all nicely sculpted. Inside the mouth, I apologize if it keeps going blurry because, like I said, these figures are so tiny. You do have this really, really deep purple for the gum tissue inside the mouth, and those tiny, tiny teeth actually do have a coat of white on them. I think that is really, really cool. Going down to the neck, you have some nice striping, light brown striping mixed in with that dark brown, and a white color on the throat. Going down to the arms, the primary feathers are all very, very nicely sculpted. Even the ones on the wrist, you can see the hands are also nicely sculpted. You got some nice white dry brushing on the inside of the feathers. The hand claws are all painted with black paint. And then going down to the rest of the body, all nicely detailed feather. You have some nice dry brushing to bring out all the lovely details on this like insanely tiny figure. Look, I'm just looking at my fingerprints right now. Usually I'm not zoomed this close in on any review. Going down to the hind legs, all nicely sculpted. You got some nice light brown striping mixing in with that white on the hind legs. And you get to about the tail part, you get to this nice white color, and then you get a little bit of brown at the plumage at the end of the tail, and all the tail is nicely sculpted, all those feathers coming out from the side. On the underside, you do have some nice markings on the stomach and in the pubic area. So yeah, all in all, a really, really cool figure. Like I said, these things are tiny, and it's amazing how much detail is packed into them. And now let's just go for articulation really quick. The mouth can open up that far and close completely flush. You do get a little bit of rotation at this little joint right here, some up and down movement. At this neck hoodie, you do get some nice side-to-side movement with those joints working in tandem. Sorry if my thumb's in the way. Like I said, these figures are very tiny to work with. You do get a nice hinge joint at the shoulders. You do get a nice bend at the elbow, and you do get articulation at the wrist. These joints are very, very tiny on the arms and elbows and wrists, so be very careful with them. The hind legs can move backwards and forwards. The knee joint does have articulation. You get a nice bend forwards and backwards. You have a joint on all versions of all the replaceable feet, and you do get some up and down and side to side movement at that mid torso joint. And then for the tail, you get up, down, and some nice side to side movement. No rubber wire in here because the tails are very, very thin. I don't think that would have worked out well. Moving on with comparisons, first up here it is with the Hammond collection. Dr. Alan Grant, this figure is 1/18 scale, so this gives you a good idea of how small Raptors were in real life. And man, Jurassic Park would have been a much different movie if they went with 6-foot-long Velociraptors. And next up, speaking of Velociraptor, here is the previously reviewed 1/18 scale Velociraptor, and here is the 1/18 scale Protoceratops. You can see how those look together. And next up, here is the 1/6 scale Dromaeosaurus. You can see they are very similar. The paint scheme is a little bit cruder on the small one because it, like you can obviously see, is a much smaller figure. And I do like taking out my 1/6 scale Raptors once in a while because they are beautifully painted figures. And this one is one of the few I actually still keep displayed. I don't have a lot of room to display my stuff, so I have like a rotation, but this one's been on my shelf ever since I got it. And next up, let's do some feathered Dromaeosaurs from other companies. Oh, actually just one company, because it's Safari. Here is Safari Limited's Deinonychus, and Velociraptor. And David, you really got to do a 1/18 scale Deinonychus. It's one of my top wants in the entire line. It'd be just great to have a figure that's like going to be in between the Dromaeosaur and the upcoming Utah Raptor. And here it is with some dinosaur park formation species. This is the formation that Dromaeosaurus is from. We have Centrosaurus, the juvenile Centrosaurus, and Chasmosaurus. So yeah, it's going to look great when the beast of Mesozoic, Daspletosaurus, and Gorgosaurus comes out, and hopefully we get more species because the dinosaur park formation is very rich and diverse. And this little Dromaeosaurus, even though it's 1/18 scale, you probably could sneak it into like your 135, 140 scale collection, because I don't really see many companies making Dromaeosaur figures any smaller than this, so it can definitely work with your small scale collection also. And lastly, to really put this thing into perspective, here it is with the 1/18 scale T-Rex that hopefully sometime this century I will actually finish painting. In a couple more months, the actual painted versions of these Rex figures will be shipping in. When I tell you, I am so excited for that Dino Riders version. I've been waiting for a green and yellow T-Rex figure like that ever since I was a kid in the 80s. You know, I'm thankful my parents went out and bought me that T-Rex toy, because that toy was stupidly expensive back then. But man, was I disappointed when I opened that box. It was just a big, gray T-Rex figure. So yeah, David making childhood dreams come true. So final thoughts on the 1/18 scale Dromaeosaurus. It's a great figure. Like I said with the Velociraptor review, it's amazing how much articulation is packed in tiny little 4-inch figures. The articulation works really well. Figures are light. You can get them in fun, dynamic poses. The bases work great with them. The only thing is, you just be really careful with those joints. They're very small, and you can easily break your figure. That's why I say it so much, because I don't want to see it happen. It hasn't happened to me yet. But just a word of caution. But other than that, they're great little figures. You know what? $25 is, I think, the right price for the amount of work and paint that goes into these figures. And the Dromaeosaurus is my favorite the 3 1/18 scale Raptors release. Hopefully David decides to do more species in that scale, because I will definitely buy them, because feathered Dromaeosaurs are just, they're a big deal in the paleontology community, but like for some reason, like toy companies just don't want to do them for some reason. Like PNSO just flat out ignores feathered Dromaeosaurs, and I'd just love to see their take on them. So right now, David is definitely filling a nice little niche with these 1/18 scale ones. I'm happy to add them to my collection. And like I said at the beginning of the review, if you want to order one of these figures, the link is down below to Creative Beast Studios. And right now, they're still technically up for pre-orders, so you'll save a couple bucks if you order them right now before the second shipment comes into stock. Once that happens, they'll be regular price $24.99. So that will do it for the review. Still have 3 more figures to review from this assortment: the Psittacosaurus, the other Proceratops, and the Linoraptor. And I gotta try to crank those out this week, because I'm going away to Denver, and we're doing some dinosaur related activities over there. The 148 breweries in the city don't kill me first. Gonna visit the Denver Museum, check out the dinosaurs there, and the Jurassic World expedition is also still in Denver, so I plan on checking that out this weekend. So if you don't see reviews for like 5 or 6 days, I'll be away. And so that will do it for the review. As always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously, and it's greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.